Hello everyone, welcome to Z&Z Classroom. I'm Mary, and in this video, we're going to be learning about the average rate of change. So let's start with what is exactly average rate of change is. So it's basically over an interval, the function, the change of the function per unit on average inside that interval. So for example, let's say if I have an interval of a comma b, my average rate of change would be, so my average rate of change, I'm just gonna use a abbreviation. So that would just be equal to f of a b minus f of a over b minus a. So basically I'm calculating the slope using these 2 points. Okay, so that's a brief introduction, and let's go to some of the questions. We are going to introduce 3 types of questions. The first one, we have the graphs. The second one, we have the charts. And the third one, we have the functions. So let's start with the graphs. Let me give you a question. So what would be my average rate of change in the interval of -1 to 1? So from what I just said here, when I'm doing my average rate of change, I'm basically using the 2 points to calculate the slope. So let's see. What are my 2 points? I'm finding the 2 points on the graph with the x values of -1 and 1. So let's plot these 2 points. So first I have this point right here, and secondly I have this point. So I'm basically calculating the slope of it. So I'm just gonna connect these 2 points, and I'm calculating the slope. Basically, right now you can directly see it's a flat line, which the slope is equal to 0. So if I want to really calculate it, I have the 2 points here. I have -1 comma 0, and I have 1 comma 0. When I'm calculating my slope, or at this time, my average rate of change is going to be equal to 0 minus 0 and 1 minus -1, which I will get to 0. So that would be my average rate of change, okay? So that will be my first example on this graph. And my second example, let's say my interval, let's say my average rate of change in the interval of -1 to 0. Or let's say, I think -2 would be a better one. Just change the point, -2 comma 0. So what will be my average rate of change? Still, I'm gonna find the 2 points with x values of -2 and 0. So here's my point, and here's my point. Okay, that might be, okay, that's not a really good example. That also has a slope of 1. Let's just say 2, 1, okay? So I'm plotting that point right here. I'm gonna connect them so you can see better. And then you're basically calculating the slope of it. I'm using the 2 points, so I'm gonna write it here. I have -2 comma 1 and 1 comma 0. So what will be my average rate of change? My average rate of change here is equal to 0 minus 1 over 1 minus -2, which I would get -1/3. So from the graph, you don't need to calculate it. You could know my slope is a negative slope because from the line I drew, I could determine it's a negative slope because it goes down. As the x values increases, my y values decreases. So I can determine without calculating my slope, or my average rate of change will be a -1. Okay, so that will be my examples for the graphs. Now we're going to move on to the charts. For the charts, So I'm gonna give you 2 questions here, and then let's move this down a little bit. Okay. So let me just give you a question. So this chart is basically you don't even know what the function is. I just put random numbers here, but you still could find the average rate of change as long as it's a continuous function. Okay. So in here, I'm gonna ask you what will be my average rate of change in the interval of -8, 0. So pause this video and think about it and come back. All right. So hope you already think about it. When we are trying to find these, still the same thing. We're finding the points with the two x values that present in the like the endpoints, right? So I'm gonna circle the 2 points here, and then I can write it down. I'm just gonna say, so basically this is an interval this is representing interval, but this I'm just representing the points. They're the coordinates, okay? And then 0, 3. So what will be my average rate of change? So my average rate of change is equal to 7 or I guess this is better. So 3 minus 7 over 0 minus -8. So I get -4 over 8, so equal -1/2. So that will be my average rate of change. So in this case, you're just using these 2 points and basically calculating the slope or average rate of change. And in this case, we call it average rate of change. Okay. Now, so I'm gonna give you another example. For example, I'm asking you, what will be my average rate of change from the interval of -6 to 2? And it should be square brackets. Okay, so same thing. I'm finding these 2 points. So -6, my x value with -6 and with 2. So these 2 points, and then I can list it here. You don't need to list it. I just want to be clear. I'm listing here. And then will be my average rate of change. Average rate of change equal to. So it's going to be 0 minus 8 over 2 minus -6. So I'm getting -8 over 8, equal to -1. So that's how I can find my average rate of change. And you see that in here, I have a negative average rate of change. How can I determine that? As my x value increases, so from -6 to 2, my x value increases, but my y value decreases. It decreased from 8 to 0. So for example, if a question asks you, give me an example of the interval that my average rate of change is negative, I could use the example of -6 to, 2, or I could also use the example -8, 0. So if the question asks you, what will be an interval that the average rate of change is 0? In this case, it will be the interval of -8, 4, because, so I'm gonna write it here, average rate of change equals 0. The interval is basically from -8 to 4, because these 2 points I have -8, 7 and 4, 7. When I'm calculating my average rate of change, is 7 minus 7 over 4 minus -8. So I basically has 0. Okay, that's my example of average rate of change equals 0. And so so another one will be average of the change that's positive. In this case, let's just say average rate of change is positive. I could give you an example that's, for example, from -1 to 4. -1 to 4. So I have -1, -4, and I have 4, 7. So my average rate of change is equal to what? It's equal to 7 minus -4 over 4 minus negative 1, which I'm getting 11 over 5. That's a uh, um, positive average rate of change. So there could be multiple like intervals that the average rate of change is positive or negative or zero. It just depends on the problem, like how many they want you to list. So in this case, there are a lot of like examples I could give. Okay. So, but the main thing is that how could you determine whether it's negative, positive, or zero, or they might even want you to calculate a specific number that you might just want to try several set that you think what might be correct, and then you will find the correct answer. Okay. So that'll be my chart. Next, we're gonna explore how can I find for the function. So it's basically the same thing. It just you need to plug in the x value. So for example, in this case, I want you to give me what would be my average rate of change in the interval from 2 to 4. Okay. So this function, you might not even know what this function is. It's not a quadratic or something like that or whatever. What you're gonna do is that you're just gonna plug in, okay? Just gonna plug in. So what will be my f of 2? My f of 2 equals 3 2 third plus 5 2 squared minus 10. So I'm plugging and I'm finding, so that's 24 here. That's 20 minus 10, 44, 34. I'm getting, so this is my first coordinate. I'm getting 2 comma 34. Okay. And then next, my next coordinate, what would be? So f of 4, I have 4 cubed plus 5 times 4 squared minus 10 is equal. So that's 64 times 3. That's 192. And that's 16 times 5, that's 80. And then minus 10, 70. So 262. So that's what I'm getting. That's my other coordinate, which is 4 comma 262. Okay, so I'm finding the 2 points. Now it's the easy part. I just need to find my slope. So my average of the change will equal to 262 minus 34 over 4 minus 2. So on the top, I'm getting 228 over 2. So my average of change is 114. Okay, by the way, this average of change ARC thing, it's just my abbreviation. It's not really like an official like symbol or something. It's just for my video, I'm just gonna put ARC for average of change. Okay, so that'll be the 3 types of problems and hope you enjoyed it. We're gonna have a practice problem video coming up and hope you can get more practice from there and comment below if you have any questions. Thank you.